This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Alec Lewis, how are you?
Hey, Paul. How you doing? I'm sitting in your chair reading a story about Doug Plank. Really fascinating. So yeah,
I'm not familiar with him. Who is he?
Yeah, he's. The last time I heard you talk about a player this much was Joe Flacco. So Doug, good to talk to you.
You too.
I miss seeing your hair. Probably.
Yep. Well, we'll see each other tomorrow. And with your permission, since, the next couple of hours, and at least 2 hours at the Friday Football Feast beginning September 5th, Buffalo Wild Wings, Oakdale, courtesy of, Steve's Appliances and stevesappliances.com. Since you're kind enough to join us, I'm going to say with your permission, we would like to advance with, what's known as Vikes Bites, which is tied to a sponsor. You cool with that?
I would absolutely love it. That is nothing I'm looking forward to more.
All right, Nordo, 3-2.
Vikes Bites brought to you by the great people at Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. And you can shop online. A box of meat shows up at your doorstep. You can also go to your local Coburn's, Co-ops, Kowalski's locations as well. And as part of Vikes Bites here, I'm going to start by playing a couple pieces of audio. First from Sam Howell and then Brett Rippon. Let's listen. Here's Sam Howell on learning the offense.
I mean, you just got to put the time in. We get a lot of good coaching here. Josh McCown's a great quarterback coach, and obviously spending some time with Coach O'Connell as well has been great. It's fun. I mean, it's a good offense. You know, we have a lot of good stuff, and makes it hard on the defense. But as long as you put the time in and do what you're supposed to do, you can learn it.
So that's Sam Howell, and then on the other end of it, Brett Rippon, year 2, everything feels better.
Way further along. Just knowing, how we operate with footwork around here and, what Kevin and Josh expect as far as reads go, and then just being able to get reps during the spring on the same plays, that I was trying to learn at the beginning of the season last year. It's been night and day in terms of my knowledge and ability to anticipate and know where guys are going to be.
So, gentlemen, I guess we'll start with PA since you are on site at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, TCO Studios. We're all pumped for the J.J. McCarthy debut, but really an opportunity, these auditions. I was trying to explain to my kids what preseason games were last night. They didn't really understand it until I hit them with the idea of auditions. I'd like my kids auditioning for Little Mermaid, the play at their school. Sam Howell, Brett Rippon auditioning for that backup quarterback spot. What do we expect? What do we love? What do we need to see from these two guys over the next few weeks? We'll start with you, PA.
And Alec, I'm going to head over to you with this because J.J. McCarthy, the fan, has learned, likewise for theathletic.com, that J.J. McCarthy will be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings when they go to Soldier Field September 8th. With Hal, Rippon, and Brosmer, do you envision them keeping Hal and Rippon and Brosmer on the practice squad maybe? Or it's one or the other? What are your thoughts?
It's possible, but I don't really, I'm not going to look far down the road there. This is, tomorrow, obviously all eyes are going to be on J.J. McCarthy and how he gets in and out of the huddle and the plays he makes. And that's probably going to be the story of the day. But the low-key element of what tomorrow is, as Nordo just hinted at, these quarterbacks, Sam Howell, Brett Rippon, Max Brosmer, this is a major evaluation point for these guys. They've had all of them. They've been up and down. I'll say Sam Howell yesterday in a 2-minute period, it was the best he looked. But before that, there have been a lot of interceptions, a lot of murky decision making. Brett Rippon has looked pretty good the last few days, but didn't really pop early on. And then Max Brosmer has definitely shown stuff throughout the course of this training camp, the processing, even just the knowledge of the offense. But whether these guys are sharing a half, whether they are playing just a couple series, being able to operate efficiently tomorrow will go a long ways in terms of just predicting whether any of them secure spots on this roster. And I'll say this, we talk a lot about, does the backup quarterback even matter if you're even in that spot? But I was reading yesterday, Jeff Lurie, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, has said in the past that he views that as one of the most important positions on the roster. And so to just kind of shoo this away as, well, all the eggs are in the JJ basket and we're not going to, mentally prepare and be cognizant of this, I think that would be kind of foolish, just given the expectations of what this season has to be.
Jeffrey Lurie, by the way, winning a Super Bowl with the backup quarterback. So I wonder if that influences his opinion with Nick Foles after the Carson Wentz injury and all of those things. But Vikes Bites! Vikes Bites brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Jalen Naylor, gentlemen, it's something PA and I talked about, and we're glad you're here, Alec, because we want to continue this conversation. Jalen Naylor. We remember some early season success that he had. There was the weird muffed punt at Lambeau. Maybe he dropped a pass on like a 3rd and 7 against the Rams at SoFi a year ago. Yeah. And we can all speculate whether that would have been a touchdown and the ripple effect from there on out. But Jalen Naylor, he's going to have an opportunity in front of him here. And the Addison suspension for the first 3 games. But what kind of camp has Jalen Naylor had? And start to weave that into what the wide receiver room looks like in totality.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when Alex sent his version of the Tolstoy, and I framed it up earlier, and it was important to me to say, let's let Alec explain this, because it's like, texting with somebody and figuring out the tone of a text and exactly what somebody means. But in the Tolstoy, it was Naylor negatives, so there are some Naylor negatives here. And again, Alec is at markedly more practices than me, and he's at all the press conferences. I see some, but I listen to most of them back. So Naylor and the wide receiver room overall, gone with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, with Jalen Naylor during this training camp, it's just been way too many drops, just way too many. And I'm out there every day. I'm watching it all the time. He has caught the ball. Let's be very clear. There have been out route patterns where J.J. McCarthy is layering the football to him and he's making the catch and toe tapping, and that is great. But if he is going to establish himself and propel this offense early in the season without Jordan Addison, just cannot be drops over the middle of the field, cannot be drops in the honey hole against cover 2. It cannot be drops in the red zone. That's just not going to cut it for the standard that this offense is going to have to rise to for it to work. And the receiver room overall, it is somewhat of a question mark. I go back to this offseason, you don't bring back Trent Sherfield. And Trent Sherfield was not an exceptional talent. He was a little bit of a run blocker, but he was at least reliable. He knew the offense. He made plays that he needed to make. He ended up signing with Denver, and he's going to have a role with them. Apparently, he's looked very good with Denver. And so, right now, you have faith, obviously, in Justin Jefferson. Jalen Naylor knows the offense and has produced in the past. Ty Felton is learning the offense. He's also had some drops this training camp. Lucky Jackson has gotten reps with the ones, but there's just not a lot in terms of the depth there that you probably feel an immense amount of trust in if those guys are thrust into action meaningfully. And it's just not a spot that I don't think was a major concern for me, obviously, entering the season.
Well, let me go farther down the road on this then, because PA and I have also talked multiple times, including earlier today, about Rondale Moore and the opportunity that he has. And just kind of, veteran, has he played 150 games? No, but veteran versus a Silas Bolden type, a veteran or proven versus a Lucky Jackson type. And we all had images of him finding the old days of running it up against Goldie Gopher with Purdue, and then some of the highlight plays that he made with Arizona. But now off that crushing injury, I'm just sifting through what I see at practice and limited in comparison to you as well. I got to be honest, and I've said it before, the shiftiness, the pop, some of those things that I was looking at, it's kind of a little slow to go for him. So whether it's returning punts, any opportunities at all in the pass game, where's Rondale Moore sitting? And I think he's got to prove his value here in a big way.
Yeah, without question. Like this, and I've written this now for weeks. Like this was never just going to be handed to Rondale Moore because he was a gadget weapon in Arizona or he had great games at Purdue. Like that doesn't matter at all at this level. And you guys know just as well as I do, this is a complex offense that, it requires a lot from an aptitude and intelligence standpoint. And so for Rondale, like during training camp, there have been sequences where, he's asked to go in motion, then he goes, then he has to go back because it was the wrong motion. Like just that type of stuff. For this offense with the efficiency that they want to operate, you're just not going to establish trust from Kevin O'Connell, who, as a play caller, so much of how he calls plays and thinks about things is, do I have conviction that you can operate the offense well? And Lucky Jackson, though he has not produced like Rondale Moore, he has been here for 3 years. He knows this offense very well. You mentioned the punt returning. Like if Rondale Moore is back there tomorrow, that is an area where he has to grab eyeballs and, be willing to take hits, all of that stuff. If he's going to vie for a roster spot, that's probably the area that he's going to have to impress more than any other. And it's incumbent upon him to do that because, again, like this is not just going to be handed to him because he's a fun little gadget weapon to think about.
Do you think there is a humbling aspect of that when it comes to, if you're Rondale Moore, you're back from injury. Now, it's not that you haven't done it in the past, but I'm just trying to scramble here. I mean, he did a few punts. He did fewer than 10. He did 8 returns on the punt side in 2023, 7 in 2021.
It's way less than people act like he's like this punt return specialist.
Right.
And it's the same. This is a conversation for probably another point, but the returners in general, like Ty Felton, they've had him, fielding kicks, but he's barely ever done that. So I still have major questions in the special teams phase, specifically with the returner. I'll let you keep going around him more.
Well, no, but specifically with Rondale and maybe and Ty, I mean, and Silas Bolden is taking reps. Like you just look at kind of the few of the guys that are trying out there. But I wonder how much of a humbling moment that is for Rondale, where this was just kind of a bit thing, maybe situational or out of need, in which he's returning punts during his time at Arizona. And now you're kind of, the way you sum it up, he has to maybe grab on to a role that potentially he could have even said, I'm beyond that. I'm that important to the offense. I'm that important to Kyler Murray. Now, fresh start post-injury, it's kind of like I got to lower myself down. I hope he doesn't look at it that way, but maybe he does. I mean, just the humbling aspect of having to take on maybe more rudimentary or roster spot clinching responsibilities that he wouldn't have had to think about pre-injury.
Yeah, it probably is pretty humbling. I mean, again, like I don't want to mitigate the fact this is a guy who's caught 50 passes in multiple seasons. So he's done it at this level and been effective in these games. But just as well as I do, Nordo and UPA as well. Like this league doesn't really care what you've done. We're fielding the best 53 to win every given Sunday because that's what these towns demand of us. And so for Rondale, if it takes a hurdle to get over, the fact that he's going to have to prove it in this role, like he better get over the hurdle. That's just this league.
Vikes,
all right, let me dovetail off that and take it to returns, specifically punt returns. Now, it appears per the depth chart and things that we have seen, Alec, that Rondale Moore is going to be given every opportunity to be the team's first punt returner. Is that fair?
Yes. Maybe, yeah. I mean, he'll be given the opportunity as well as others.
Okay. Well, 8.5 yards per return on like 22 of them in his first 3 years with Arizona and no touchdowns. Silas Bolden. Okay. So now it may not even be a puncher's chance. Silas Bolden is on the active 53. It's a long shot. I don't know how long of a shot it is, but here's the deal: I didn't put time into this until this morning. He may be the most naturally gifted punt returner on this entire roster. I mean, when he was in college at a couple of places, he had a punt return touchdown at Oregon State.
Yep.
And I'm tripping. Where did he last play? Texas? Yeah.
Texas.
So he had, I think the one at Texas went for 75, and he had one at Oregon State. And he's like 10.5, 11 yards per return. And when you watch some of the returns, and I'm not deep diving in the weeds, true media from his Oregon State days, but the things that I did watch, it's natural for him. He catches it the right way. He doesn't drop it. He has wiggle, and he knows how to get to the house. So, like I fully expect Silas Bolden to field a Tommy Townsend punt or two tomorrow. But what do you think of that whole scenario?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an astute point. Silas Bolden also returned kicks at Oregon State. He returned 22 kicks in 2022, 17 kicks in 2023. Last year, to your point, as a punt returner at Texas in the SEC, he had 30 punt returns, averaging 10.5 yards per return and a touchdown, and he had a touchdown returning punts in 2023. Yeah, I mean, I don't even remotely think it's close in terms of his experience in the return phase, and his production there is the best they have on the roster. The question is, are they going to need to pull at the receiver position, or are they going to have to choose a more receiver-y type player to kind of supplement what they have on the back end of the receiver depth chart? Like, those are questions, but there's probably a way, whether it's sneaking them through waivers of the practice squad. Like, there's probably approaches that they could take there, but there's a reason they signed Silas Bolden in the undrafted portion for $250+ guaranteed in the first place, and it is because of the numbers that I just read off and what you said in terms of your evaluation of him as a returner.
Well, I wonder if and I haven't noticed this, and quite honestly, I'm not up to speed on who the gunners are on punt coverage. But like, if Bolden can play gunner, or he can do something special on special teams, whether it's Dan Chisena, whether it's Najee Thompson, whether it's Trent Sherfield Sr. to a certain extent, but you could throw the ball to him a little bit, and he's a veteran, is it wouldn't be the first time that there is a designated role for somebody who, he can play receiver if somebody gets hurt and you got to elevate him, but he ends up being a key to the special teams, but specifically giving the team the best chance it's had since Marcus Sherrills in 2016 against the Houston Texans at U.S. Bank Stadium to return a punt to the end zone. You feel me?
Absolutely. I mean, I've banged the drum for special teams. I mean, look, it is what it is. It's the phase that it is, but I just have felt like, and most of the numbers and some of the deep analytic stuff just bears it out, that I felt like they've left money on the table in this phase. And when you guys know this just as well as I do, when these games are as tight as they are, to grab any edge margin advantage as you possibly can, whether it's field position or just, being able to down a punt inside the 10. Like, if you can do that, you just give yourself a little more leeway, which can be critical. So, if Silas Bolden tomorrow against the Texans is returning punts and can prove what he proved in college, it's he's definitely gonna pop, and it's gonna impress upon the coaches that he will obviously vie for a 53 spot.
Man. This is your Silas Bolden leader, the fan, and KFAN.com. It's part of Vikes Bites. Feel right. Green light. Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites. Thank you, Thousand Hills. Let me ask you this. We got JJ making his debut tomorrow. We have, I'm hoping to see a fair amount of the Vikings offensive line out there, even if it's for limited reps. We'll see. PA's thinking maybe we chill on Ryan Kelly. I'm cool with that. That means Juergens has a great opportunity in front of him. But behind JJ, will we see Jordan Mason, if even for a couple of plays, just to run a couple up the gut and see what that power looks like against a different defense? Xavier Scott, you're a big Trace Stewart fan, I believe.
No.
But Ty Chandler gripping and ripping at maybe his last opportunities as a member of the Vikings. Am I going to see Jordan Mason tomorrow? Am I going to see somebody break out maybe on the ground a little bit as part of this thing?
Well, I do think tomorrow, similar to the way we're talking about like the receiver depth and the power, it will be a massive day for Ty Chandler and Xavier Scott, both to prove in pass protection that they know the rules and all of that they care about offensively, and that they have burst both as runners and pass catchers. Like, this is a showcase for those two guys to establish themselves as potentially the third running back.
For other teams?
Well, one of them maybe, if they don't make the roster.
That's dumb. My bad.
Jordan Mason, I don't know this, so I haven't talked to anybody. I wouldn't be shocked if he played alongside JJ as part of the ramp up process of, getting in and out of the huddle, hearing the play calls, just establishing a feel with the offense. It wouldn't surprise me if he got a series or two. And if he does play, he probably will at some point either run somebody over or use his very distinct vision to find a crease. He's been, I will say this, and PA, you know this because you've been out there. The run game is very hard to evaluate in training camp because of the lack of live tackling, but everything I've seen, it just feels like they've done it. They've practiced it more, and it does feel like both of those backs look really good, and the offensive line in general has been able to create a dent in that phase, which is going to be paramount. We talked about the receivers, but if this offense is going to hold its own early in this season without Jordan Addison, I fully believe the run game is going to be a just essential part of that.
There is a coach with whom I chatted during practice yesterday who informed me.
And how is Jordan Traylor?
Bowis. They are very happy with the training camp running game. I mean, in fact, there were moments during training camp practices where if it was like a game, and you got Sam Howell, going Tsuyoshi Nishioka on things and with the worm burners and stuff like that, and threw Rippin and Brosmer and the swaggy hair and McCarthy and stuff like that. The run game has been consistent, and there have been times where, like, if we stuck with this and it was a game, we would have gone for 150 yards. So
I lost you at swaggy hair. I'm not going to lie.
They're quite happy with the running game. At least I believe they are. I mean, I'm not talking to O'Connell about this at least yet. But
no, they are. I can validate everything you said from conversations as well.
So just to land the plane here before we go to break with the Minnesota Moving Company, because when first quarterbacks are used in the preseason, well, if they're not used or when they come out of the game, well, it's age old, man. I mean, we'll hear the same thing over and over. I don't want so-and-so to be behind the backup offensive line. What good does it what good does it do so-and-so throwing to two receivers who might be 4 and 5 when the active is settled, and the other two receivers are practice squad at best? Do with the offensive line, like, I'd put Darisaw at a 0% for tomorrow. Kelly's been in and out. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if he played, but I think it's a 50-50. O'Neal, yeah, if Brian played, I wouldn't be surprised. Fries, I think, will play. Jackson absolutely will play. So what do you think of all of that in front of McCarthy? How much does it matter to you, the iteration of offensive line they have as they attempt to raise him?
Oh, it matters to me. It matters deeply to me. I'm with you. Donovan Jackson, Will Fries, even potentially Brian Kelly, like those, I wouldn't be shocked. The two questions are, if Ryan Kelly doesn't play, then Michael Juergens better eat his Wheaties tomorrow morning and arrive at the stadium ready to anchor as well as he's ever anchored in his life. And the other question mark that I'd have is at left tackle. Justin School, who was the swing tackle signed from Tampa Bay, who started 5 games last year, he didn't practice yesterday. I'm not sure how much he's practiced in the last few days. And so if Darisaw doesn't play and School can't play, then you're relying on Walter Rouse to be the left tackle for J.J. McCarthy in the preseason game. And that is something that I up in the press box will be using my binoculars to eye very closely. But it's I'm glad you talked about it. It's something that it's just so important. And we'll talk over the course of this show about the broad evaluation of J.J. McCarthy thus far, but it has been so difficult because the pass protection has just not been there longer than like 2.5 seconds to really evaluate it. So for tomorrow, against the Texans, and D'Amico always has those guys blazing off the line of scrimmage. It's going to be interesting to see who does play, and whoever does play, it is going to be majorly incumbent upon them to give it their very best for this quarterback to start to ingratiate himself in these real games.
Vikes Bites each and every 9 to noon weekday are provided by
Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef.
When we return, we will long form the conversation on quarterback J.J. McCarthy and get the opinions of Alec Lewis on what he's seen so far during training camp and what his/our expectations are for the second-year product from Michigan tomorrow, 3 o'clock on KFAN. Back after this.
Been drinking. Does that sound right? Does that sound about right? That sounds great. That checks out. It checks out.
Yes! I mean, pick your poison with that defense.
Just listen.
9 to noon.
McCarthy, Alec Lewis, what have you seen during training camp? You've written about it, but for those who have missed the tweets and stuff like that, just from through all of at times what have been legitimately and with all due respect passing game woes at Minnesota Vikings training camp against that defense. McCarthy, in a nutshell, what have you seen?
Yeah, someone for my podcast asked about what do I think of all the national narratives, and I said it's not my job to really care about the national narratives. It's my job to show up and watch for 2 hours every day and make my evaluation. And I said it there as well. But my feeling on this in my evaluation is probably the exact same thing J.J. McCarthy would say, where it's been up and down. There have been good moments. There have been not good moments. It hasn't been crazy highs. It also hasn't been crazy lows. There's an example on both ends. Yesterday, J.J. McCarthy feathers one over the top, down the field, maybe 35-yard pass to T.J. Hockenson, perfectly on the back shoulder, and Blake Cashman, who was running the pipe with T.J., couldn't intercept it. That was a great moment. The day before, J.J. McCarthy tried to fit a ball in on a third read to Jordan Addison, and it was intercepted by Blake Cashman, and it was just not a throw that you can make, and so that's not a good moment. I just again, I don't know, maybe people get frustrated when I or we or you or anybody says this, but he's a 22-year-old who didn't play crazy, a ton in college at Michigan. He didn't play for a year. He doesn't have Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have the full offensive line. And there have been good moments and bad moments. That's not crazy to me. That's not concerning to me. It just kind of is what it is. And I'm looking forward to continuing to watch it on a daily basis. I go back to last year, Cleveland joint practices. PA, you were there. First day, the offense was abysmal. If you come out of that day thinking the offense was going to be terrible all year, you would have been sorely mistaken. So just not trying to make too much out of these random practices on August 7th.
Okay, now the next layer of it, Nordo and I kind of hit on this hard yesterday, where it's not a bang the fist on the table situation where this has to happen, and if it doesn't, it's a failure. But with the assumption, and I think understanding, Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, plus others, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's hurt. Some of the best Texans defensive players are not going to play tomorrow. I don't think C.J. Stroud's going to play. I don't think Nico Collins is going to play, and so on. That's offense. But defensively speaking, the D'Amico is a pressure-based kind of coach, but he's not going to offer up his prime in the first preseason game, and his best two rushers I don't think are going to play. So with that known, off this meat grinder, Doug Plank situation McCarthy's seen all training camp, what are your expectations tomorrow? Because like Nordo and I laid out, it doesn't need to be the greatest show on turf, but we would like to see markedly more fluidity and maybe some chunks that we otherwise haven't seen in training camp. What do you think?
Yeah, I asked JJ McCarthy Wednesday, how excited are you to face another defense that is not Brian Flores standing with the microphone calling in the plays on the other side, and he laughed audibly, and then he toned it down. He's like, well, D'Amico does a great job, but you could tell in that reaction the opportunity to not see Jonathan Grenard in his face, to not see Javon Hargrave, to not see those guys stunting on the front as often as they are, to not see on the back end, see two high safeties, then see it rotate to one, then back to two, then back to three. You got no idea what's going on. It should bode well as long as we've discussed, the protection can hold up. If Will Anderson and Daniil don't play, and it's Darnell Taylor and Derek Barnett, and the linebackers are Henry To'o and Jake Hansen, and the cornerbacks are D'Angelo Ross and Jalen Smith, I fully expect JJ McCarthy, as long as the protection holds up, to go through his reads efficiently and make good throws. And there will probably be a mistake here or there. And really, what I will be watching for, maybe more than anything else, is the plays this training camp that have gotten him a couple times are pocket breaks down. He's boots out to the right. He's trying to make a play. He's trying to fit the ball in. Can he make the smart decision in that moment? Throw the ball, check the ball down, run the ball for 5 yards, toss it to the ref, and move on to the next down. Those are the instances that maybe are going to be most interesting to me. And then I also think so much about tomorrow is just going to be optics. JJ throws a 40-yard touchdown, people are going to think he's amazing. But so much of it from the staff's perspective tomorrow is, can you get in and out of the huddle? Can you get in and out of the huddle? Can you get the cadences correct? Can you evaluate the picture pre-snap and then progress with rhythm and timing post-snap? That's what they're trying to get out of it.
So how much, with everything that's been made of how the defense has performed this camp, I think people, and I've seen it from some fans and many, even including myself at times, trying to parse away, okay, you mentioned highs, the highs haven't been sky high, the lows certainly haven't been underground low. But how much am I truly blaming, or how much am I crediting, rather, maybe the explosive nature and the high-end defense that we've been seeing versus what we are getting or not getting out of JJ? So he has to boot out, and we want to see him make the right decisions in that spot. How difficult has it been for you, or how much work have you done mentally to kind of say, okay, this is a legit young QB mistake, versus, what's he supposed to do? Dallas Turner was in his face 2 seconds after he got the ball. How have you parsed those, or separated or compartmentalized them?
Yeah, the pass rush this entire camp has given the quarterback so little room to just sit back there and go through progressions the way that Kevin O'Connell, that you guys know, the way that Kevin O'Connell wants these quarterbacks to operate within the pocket. That's just, so it's really difficult when you don't have any clear picture as a quarterback to evaluate anything of substance. For me, it is, when he does have a clean pocket, is he going through his reads and selecting the right receiver to throw to? And oftentimes, specifically on intermediate in-breaking routes, that stuff has looked very good. That you'll see Jordan Addison snap it off behind a second level defender, and JJ will hit him in the intermediate level for 15 yards. I have no questions that JJ McCarthy will be able to operate that way. And maybe one of the interesting things I've been thinking about is, let's say he's not on the ends of the spectrum, the highest end of the spectrum or the lowest end of the spectrum, but he kind of hovers near the middle throughout this year. Maybe that is enough with the talent of this roster and the infrastructure they have to really push this thing, well into the winter. Because again, the roster is that talented. Yeah. And really, it's probably going to come down to just, can you mitigate the brutal negatives? And if you can do that, again, it's easy to, if you're a fan, if you're a media member, anybody, if you're a staffer, to see the vision of, this is why you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. He doesn't have to be on the highest end of the spectrum at the very earliest point of his career, and you could still have a lot of success, which teams like the 49ers have shown and displayed for a long time.
Yeah, and that's just where I was going and I've seen less than you. When I see him with even just an adequate, normal amount of time and protection that a quarterback should be allowed and afforded, he doesn't make the dumb mistakes. I haven't seen him make an absolute bonehead decision in any respect. So but that defense and how that plays into it's just been on my mind throughout this time.
And that's where, it's like the two areas are the early downs when you don't have to force the ball in. Though you live to fight to see another down, whether it's check down, whether it's throwing the football away or scrambling for 4 yards. And then it's red zone. Like you have points, you probably have a field goal. Don't take those off the board.
Right.
By like those are those downs in this season.
They're weighty.
They are weighty. Those will dictate, in my opinion, how far that they can take this thing.
That's Alec Lewis from The Athletic and theathletic.com. Let's head to the other side of the equation, the defense. And the cornerback depth in long form fashion has been an offensive, a Minnesota Vikings talker, that is. We'll get into that and more around the corner on KFAN.
Now, what did I do wrong?
Fan Travelers forecast in Amsterdam. It's 69 and smoky. Welcome back to 9 to noon. Nordo produces. I'm Paul Allen. Alec Lewis from The Athletic is with us, as he will be each and every Friday, courtesy of Steve's Appliances and stevesappliances.com. He's going to be one of the co-hosts of the Friday Football Feast when we head to Buffalo Wild Wings Oakdale for the first feast. So that'll be September 5th, Friday, September 5th, before the Bears game. You will see yours truly, producer Nordo, producer one, and Alec Lewis. Chad Greenway will be stopping by, stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do with the feast, at least a majority of the Fridays, and we think you'll enjoy it. Cornerback depth and the long-form off-season talker it has been. I'm just going to lay it out like this. Analyze that into the Texans game, and who do you think's like playing for positioning?
Yeah, Byron Murphy Jr. and Isaiah Rodgers are the clear 1 and 2 at that position. Rodgers he's kind of flown under the radar because so much of the conversation has been about the pass rush. But he's shown everything you'd want to see. The ball skills down the field, competitiveness at the catch point, speed, kind of like confidence. Isaiah Rodgers has been impressive to me. And then the question obviously is kind of rounding out this room. So Jeff Okudah has taken snaps with the ones in nickel personnel, which for the folks listening is when the team has 5 defensive backs on the field and they have 3 cornerbacks on the field, and they slide Byron Murphy Jr. to the slot, and then they have Isaiah Rodgers and Jeff Okudah on the outside. I wouldn't be shocked if Jeff Okudah got some run tomorrow against the Texans. And then, it's a big day for Mekhi Blackmon, for Dwight McGlothern, and for Zamiah Vaughn. And I always viewed this position and always felt like the way they viewed this position was they felt set after free agency. They wanted to evaluate early in training camp. And then if they need to find other players to supplement, they would do that over the course of training camp. So Mekhi Blackmon, it just I haven't seen him a ton. So tomorrow will be a good opportunity for that. And then Dwight McGlothern had that string of interceptions in practice, but I said this yesterday, like, how much confidence do you think Brian Flores will really have if in week 3 against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, he's having to put Nudie McGlothern out there? That's just where the depth of this room remains a major question mark for me.
Fair, but don't you think that's a situation with a fair amount of teams around the NFL? And it's clear here, okay, they like Byron Murphy Jr., or they wouldn't have given him what they gave him as kind of a, we love you, and here's what we're going to give you because here's what we expect of you. So Byron Murphy Jr., I think, is a 1, 2, or a 3 for any team in the National Football League. They obviously have a massive Isaiah Rodgers related opinion. When you sign him and then you start hearing people talk about him, and, Flores and others are like, we want him to be for us what Zach Bond was for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. Somebody who is getting a major opportunity, and that individual comes through in major fashion. Well, they got to be right with that opinion. So then you get to everybody else you mentioned. But like with the Detroit Lions, all right, Enos Rakestraw, we're happy for him. He's a backup corner.
He's out for the season.
Detroit you're right. Yeah, he's a backup corner for the Detroit Lions. He's season IR. So now with Arnold and DJ Reed, you know, that's the first step toward, if I'm a Lions fan, like that's the first step toward all the crap we faced last year when they just kept losing players left and right. And then finally, the metaphorical bubble broke in that postseason game against Jaden Daniels. So you understand what I'm saying here, that a lot of teams face the same thing if one of their top three gets hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I mean, you look at the Packers, for example, like it's Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, Bo Melton, the former receiver, Kamal Haddon, the rookie. You're probably right. I mean, the depth everywhere. I mean, look, like I said, Byron Murphy Jr., Isaiah Rodgers, and Jeff Okudah, with the way they want to play, I really do think it can work. And it's just going to be a matter, really, for Okudah, it's like, can he stay healthy throughout the course of training camp, and can he maintain the confidence? I talked to Durante Jones, the Vikings defensive pass game coordinator, will probably be a future DC in the league, yesterday, and he was like, we're really happy with Jeff. It's just about, continuing to prove what he's already proved to us so far. So, yeah, I mean, look, I when they signed Rodgers and Okudah, they did it with clear visions for those guys playing meaningful roles, and nothing thus far has moved them off those beliefs.
With this particular group, do you see Flores having, do you see anything fundamentally changing when you try and go back? Okay, we had Shaq Griffin, we had Stephon Gilmore a handful of years removed from Defensive Player of the Year status, but playing a certain way. Is there anything in your mind where you're like, I think maybe they can do something a little bit different with a Isaiah Rodgers and an Okudah if this continues to check out the way it does?
Yeah,
Murphy,
I mean, it's not even, I mean, they can play man coverage, and after the game, the guys won't be wondering if they can walk the next week. I've said this and told this story before, but last year after week 17, it was the Packers game. The Vikings had to win it. And Brian Flores opted for 50% man coverage that day, which was totally out of the norm of something he's done in his time here as the Vikings DC. And Matt LaFleur was thrown off. He said after the game, we did not expect that to happen. They won that game, made the week 18 against Detroit possible because of it. And after that game in the locker room, I remember Stephon Gilmore and Harrison Smith, kind of looking at each other like, I mean, that we gave we exhausted every, ounce of energy we had. And so having younger guys like Isaiah Rodgers, like Jeff Okudah, you can probably mix more of that stuff in where you're running all over the field even more. So I expect more man coverage, just more speed sideline to sideline. Like that's something that these guys provide. And they already spin the dial with defensive coverages as well as, I mean, pretty much anybody. And to be able to increase that cover one bucket, to make things even more complicated for opposing coordinators and quarterbacks, like, I think that's just another, weapon at Brian Flores' disposal this year.
Yeah, and I'm just with the way offenses run, you see nickel coverages so frequently now in the NFL. I don't know what the percentages are. I bet it's above 50%, maybe by a long shot. But with this team, we saw so much where we'd play two corners and then you have a third safety. You know what I mean? And so I'm just curious, in terms of, you give Byron Murphy the cash, he's he's your number one in this entire conversation. But then how he's mixing in the amount of times he's going with three corners, which would bring an Okudah on with Rodgers, or in a situation, is he just going Murph and Rodgers and then having that third safety in the mix? And now we're getting to like Theo Jackson, I mean, I'm kind of droning on in the wrong direction. I'm just curious, if we're going to see more nickel, if we're going to see similar with the third safety, and just kind of how Flores puts that together.
Yeah, I mean, I I've tried over the last couple of years to project like how's Flores going to evolve this thing this time around, and it's just a foolish exercise because his brain, the way he works, doesn't really make any sense. But I mean, it's you guys know this. Brian Flores is so week to week dependent. If they need on one day to play with 3 cornerbacks because those guys can run with the opposing team's 3 wide receivers, well, that's what they'll do. If the opposing team has a really good tight end that they would prefer Josh Metellus cover, then maybe they have 3 safeties on the field, and that's the route that they go. They just have that versatility and ability in a way that they just haven't. And so when you combine that with the front's potential to get home with 4 and to deploy even more stunts than they've deployed in recent years, you have a headache or a migraine or a very not fun week for the opposing offense. That's the Doug Plank part of it.
Alec Lewis, The Athletic, theathletic.com, has a story at The Athletic right now, posted recently too, which includes 12 fighting for roster spots, which means they are on the proverbial bubble. So tomorrow at 3 o'clock, KFAN, then New England, a week from Saturday at noon, with the joint practices Wednesday and Thursday at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center being important for those 12. We will analyze that and head into the final hour. You're listening to the Friday Football Feast on KFAN.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like 2-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there are lots of places that also have it, and they might not be as careful as you are. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock U.S.-based restoration specialist will help solve identity theft issues on your behalf, guaranteed or your money back. Plus, all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. You might not be able to control how others handle your personal information, but you can help protect it with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code IHEART or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.